good afternoon and welcome to this special broadcast of this year's Human Rights Day, themed celebrating the Freedom Charter, enjoying equal human rights for all. Now, Human Rights Day is an annual event to remind South African citizens about the sacrifices that accompany the struggle for democracy and freedom that has been enjoyed for the last 21 years. Now, the official event is taking place at the Rosedale Field in Uitenhage in the Eastern Cape Province, where the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Mr. Michael Masuta, is expected to deliver the keynote address. Now, the choice location of this year's event is to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Uitenhage massacre that took place on the 21st of March in 1985. Now, here's the story. A large crowd of people were on their way to a funeral of 4 young men who were killed by the police. They were prevented by the police to continue and were fired at with live ammunition. 20 people died at the scene of the shooting, and ultimately more than 21 people lost their lives that day. An exact number of fatalities linked to the shooting still remains unknown. Lerato Tipa filed this report for us.
The night before the tragic killing of more than 21 mourners on Manduna Road in Langa, a night vigil was held for the fallen men at this Anglican church. They did not know at that point that the funeral in KwaNobuhle had been banned by the South African security forces. During the 1980s, mass funerals were also political platforms, something the apartheid state tried to prevent.
Especially xa kufika yi-20 because kwakunzima ulala because bune-picture.
It was hard back in those days, especially when the 20th of March approached, because it was hard to sleep. You would have this picture of yourself running even while under the blankets. You would picture yourself running because you had a picture of those bullets they fired from the top of their head and the loud noises they made. That memory stayed with me forever since the incident occurred.
Tozama Mgesha remembers that morning of death as if it were yesterday. A bullet struck her in the back. She survived by playing dead. And 30 years after the massacre, life has been difficult.
I used to have a vegetable stand, but I had to close it down because it affected my health. I used to sit there for hours. The doctor asked what I did for a living. That made me sit for so long. He then told me to take a break because the sitting down for so long is affecting my kidneys. So now I'm no longer selling vegetables. I've had to stop and take care of my health because if I die, there'll be no one taking care of this home. I'm the only breadwinner.
The physical damage inflicted by the bullets remain a tangible reminder. But the 30 years have also not dulled the psychological effects of the shooting of many of the victims.
I
have moments where I forget certain things. It really affected my life. I injured my leg during the massacre, and as a result, I am receiving a disability grant. I also got shot on the shoulder. My life was terribly affected by this incident because I never got to work and to take proper care of my kids.
A memorial has been put up to remember the fallen. Every year on Human Rights Day, the victims and their families and friends gather to pay homage to the people who gave their lives for freedom they now enjoy. Nosisakhe Solomon and her husband Pakamile met as young lovers during the 1960s and together had 8 children. She never imagined to lose her high school sweetheart and family breadwinner on that fateful day. She struggles to come to terms with the tragedy.
We had gunshots and we were wondering what was going on. The kids then came out to see what was happening and returned home saying that Dad had been shot. They started telling me what was happening here at Manduna Road. My other son kept crying, saying that we can't find Dad amongst the people who had been shot. The victims had been taken by ambulance services. My son then went to hospital looking for him, but still did not find him. He was later found by my elder son at the mortuary in Port Elizabeth.
The memories of that day remain painful for the victims. Themba Thandani says the horror of that day was seared into his memory.
All of us as victims are not receiving anything from government. All that we get is speeches and catering on the day, and then we are taken home. After all those celebrations, there is nothing that we receive. So all of our hearts are sore. But I don't feel good every time I'm here at the graveyard to see the grave of our fallen heroes. Bring me so much pain.
The Uitenhage Massacre Foundation wants the site to be turned into an economic precinct to provide opportunities for families of the victims.
We want them to be able to make money for themselves, so that whenever there are people that come to Uitenhage, in particular when they are celebrating or commemorating the loss of their loved ones, those people must be able to invest in those particular kind of projects, so that we don't have this situation where the victims and these beneficiaries keep on saying that this government is doing nothing for us. So that's why, as the Uitenhage Massacre Foundation, we've then decided that we identify that land.
Now, 30 years later, the families of victims will gather again to remember their loved ones. But they still have one wish: a better life, as they are still trapped in the clutches of poverty. Lerato Tipa, SABC News, Uitenhage.
Well, let's now cross live to the Rosedale field in Uitenhage, where our reporters Blaine Herman and Iviwe Poti are on standby to give us updates of the day's proceedings. Now, Blaine, a very good morning to you and happy Human Rights Day. Now, the official event is taking place in Uitenhage. Please paint us a picture of what the scene is like and what we can expect from the proceedings today.
Good day, Alicia. Good day, everybody, and welcome to Rosedale Field in Uitenhage on the 21st of March, a date that will indeed live in infamy for the people of the Eastern Cape and indeed South Africans in general. You know, Uitenhage has a very special place in the history of resistance to apartheid, and the people here, they recognize that, and the people that have gathered here no doubt will be thinking of darker times in South Africa's history, like the visuals you just seen, memories of 30 years back in 1985, an event that really shocked the world. I'm talking about the bloody Uitenhage Langa Massacre. And, well, at least 20 people were killed and scores others injured when police opened fire on a group of mourners on their way to a funeral. They were going from Langa Township all the way to KwaNombushle. That's about 10 kilometers away, and you know, this is when this incident happened. They were also observing the 25th anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre. So no doubt the people here will be thinking about that. They'll be thinking about Sharpeville back in 1960, where 69 people were killed. Can you believe it? 55 years ago. Be thinking about Langa outside Cape Town, where protesters were shot at, protesting the pass laws. So those kind of events still hold sway over people here, and I guess it's public holidays like this, days like Human Rights Day, that reminds us about the sacrifices that accompanied the struggle for freedom and democracy that we've been enjoying, what, for 21 years now. Now, you're bound to hear much more of that as the proceedings continue. We've got a packed program, a number of speakers that are lined up. We're going to hear from the Premier of the Eastern Cape, Premier Masualle. Also, we've got messages of support from representatives of the Uitenhage Massacre, Langa Massacre, and also the keynote address will be delivered by the Justice and Correctional Services Minister, Michael Masuta. Now, he's likely to elaborate on this year's theme, which is celebrating the Freedom Charter as well as enjoying equal rights for all. Now, that's and much, much more coming up in the next 2 hours or so. But I'm not alone. I'm joined by my colleague Iviwe Poti, and she is on standby. Good day, Iviwe.
Good day, Blaine, and thank you. And welcome again to the audience. With Uitenhage just being over 210 years old this year, definitely it has played a significant role in South Africa's history, and that of the anti-apartheid movement. Inside the tent right now, quite a few people have come in, of all ages actually. We've got the elderly, the youth and the young. We're still waiting for other groups that are still down at the memorial site, which is not too far from the Rosedale field where we are right now. But the people that are here right now are waiting in song, and they are in a very celebratory mood to commentate and celebrate the lives of those that we lost throughout the struggle. Now back to you in studio, Alicia.
That's our reporters on the scene, Iviwe Poti, and of course Blaine Herman, where the official event has taken place in Uitenhage. Great lineup for today. You have to stay tuned right here on the channel for more. Now, following the democratic elections of 1994, March 21 was declared Human Rights Day to honor the victims of the struggle for freedom and democracy. Residents of the Langa township in the Western Cape also suffered at the hands of the brutal apartheid police. Let's now cross live to our reporter Nomawethu Solwandle, who's outside the Langa Massacre precinct. A very good morning to you, Nomawethu. What's going on in Langa today?
Good afternoon to you, Alicia. Well, indeed, we are coming to you live in Langa in the Western Cape. Now, Langa is one of the oldest townships in Cape Town, and I've actually always wondered why they call it Langa. And apparently, it's named after Chief Langa Libalele, who was imprisoned on Robben Island in the 1800s. Now, it's a very historic township here in Cape Town. As you know, people died, people were severely injured on the 21st of March 1960 when they marched against the pass laws. Now, it's very interesting that we stand here today and talk about people who were injured, who died at the hands of police fighting against the pass laws after the story that broke in Worcester here in the Western Cape, where black gardeners and colored people or workers were required to carry some sort of dompas or green card when they accessed affluent areas in that small town of Worcester. But of course, like I said, a lot of people were injured, a lot of people died. We're lucky to have some people who led at the forefront of that march on the 21st of March 1960. And joining us now is one of the people. He was 23 years old then, but he led, as young as he was, he led from the forefront. Utatu Philip Khosana. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, SABC listeners. Good morning on this auspicious day.
Dr. Philip, let's just talk about that fateful day on the 21st of March 1960.
Very briefly, I want to say that today, 55 years ago, an event took place in South Africa which became a turning point in the history of our country. On that day, estimated 69 people died at Sharpeville, and over 300 of them were wounded or maimed. And at Langa, we had 6 of our people who were killed here. I was myself present, and more than 40 people were wounded. It is a very auspicious day. It's a holy day, and we commemorate it. We don't celebrate it. We commemorate it in remembrance of the blood of our people that was spilled in the streets of Langa, the blood that spilled at Sharpeville. And those people died that we are where we are today.
Dr. Philip, now we have this commemorative event every single year. Why is it that, what do we get out of this?
When you commemorate an event, you are doing something that becomes a history of our nations. We have children who were born long time ago. Now it is 55 years. Some of them are men and women. And we owe it to them, lest we distort the picture of what happened. Hence today, because of certain decisions taken either at CODESA or by the ruling party today, the day is not called Sharpeville Day or Langa Day. It is called Human Rights Day. And let me hesitate to say, it is the task of the PAC to defend human rights, even as they are included in the constitution of this country. It is our business to defend it. But to remove the name Sharpeville and Langa and put in its place human rights, it is to destroy history and to deprive our children who tomorrow will believe that it is only human rights and all that they can do is to go and drink and dance and eat nyaupe instead of knowing the commitments and the sacrifices that were done by our people at that time.
Now, Dad Philip, you were present on the 21st of March here in 1960. Just briefly paint a picture of what it looked like on the street on that day and what happened.
On the morning of the 21st of March, we were right here where we are today, at Block C, room number 3, where I was staying. And I was woken up at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was told by the people that it is raining. And in the tradition of our people, it was that even the gods of Africa had agreed. That morning we were scheduled to march from Langa and march to the police station in Langa, there to surrender ourselves for arrest, because under the South African pass law at that time, it was an offense under the law for a black man above the age of 18 to move around without a document on your pocket. It was immediately an offense, and because we knew about that, we asked our volunteers to leave their passes at home so that we can walk to the police station and tell them where we are. We are coming to you. We have broken the law. Put us in jail. They failed. They couldn't. We were here at Langa. We were at Philippi. We were at Athlone. We were at Windermere. And no one of us was arrested on that day. We called another meeting so that we keep the momentum of the push. And in the afternoon, when we came to this same spot, that was the time when the police decided that because they say they had already banned that meeting for the day, they would simply shut us down. And they came with their loudspeakers, announced to a crowd of about 5,000 people that the crowd must disperse within 5 minutes. And knowing well it is not easy for our people to disperse in 5 minutes in that time. In other words, they were just creating a chance so that they shoot, and they did kill.
Thank you very much for your time, Dadu Philip Khosana. Well, that was Dadu Philip Khosana telling us more about what happened here on the 21st of March in 1960. He was just 23 years old then, but he led from the forefront, saying that it was about the dignity of Africans who lived here to fight against the pass laws. Back to you in studio, Alicia.
Thank you so much to Nomawethu Solwandle. Out there at the Langa, of course, Massacre precinct. Now, the historic township of Sharpeville is synonymous with Human Rights Day because the day commemorates the 21st of March 1960 Sharpeville Massacre. Now, on that day, police opened fire on a 5,000-strong unarmed crowd protesting against pass laws. Let's now cross live to our reporter Gillian Pillay outside the Sharpeville Massacre Museum. A very good afternoon to you, Gillian. What's going on in Sharpeville today?
A very good day to you, Alicia. Yes, the atmosphere here is one of celebration. A short while ago, a symbolic wreath-laying ceremony here at the Sharpeville Memorial Precinct. Activity started as early as 7 a.m. where officials, provincial officials, together with family members, visited various historical sites here in Sharpeville. Now, just to give you a sense of why Sharpeville is so significant, you'll remember that this is where in 1996, the then President Nelson Mandela signed the Constitution. This is also the place where many call that watershed moment, that peaceful march in 1960. They see that as a watershed moment in the political landscape of the country. To take us through the events of the day, we are now joined by the Sedibeng Executive Mayor, Mohale Simon Mofokeng. Sir, good morning. Just take us through the events of the day.
Good morning, Gillian. Let me firstly start by saying, before I go to the events of today, just briefly, what is important about the March 21st, other than just being celebrated as a Sharpeville Day by the people of Sharpeville, which later by the Democratic Government of South Africa has been declared a Human Rights Day, because that day our people were shot here in Sharpeville in their quest for freedom, in their quest for democracy, in their quest for their rights, fighting against Dompas. But what is important is that the whole month, especially on the 21st of March, the General Assembly of the United Nations held its meeting in 1966 and then declared the month the month of war against racial discrimination. So the 21st of March every year since then, the whole world commemorate and celebrate or the war against racial discrimination. So that is what is very important about the day. But today what we did, SCDB working together with the provincial government, we started firstly by going to Zone 7. Zone 7, if our viewers remember, that's where about 38 people were killed on the 12th of January 1991 when they were attending the night vigil of one of the youth leaders who was fighting against crime, fighting against the then vigilantes that were working for the sponsored by the government of apartheid by then against our people. So that young man, his name is Nagalembe, who was Christopher Nagalembe. At his night vigil, the people who were killed there, unarmed, armless. So we're unveiling the tombstone today for that. So that stone was firstly unveiled in 1996 by the Youth League of Zone 7. So in recognition and respect of the Youth League, after it has been broken down this year by the thugs and the criminals, the city municipality working together with the provincial government and our local municipality of Mfuleni, we went there to unveil it today, 7 o'clock. Then after which, we came to Sharpeville where the main events are taking place. We went to Pelandaba Cemetery where 69 people that were killed on the 21st of March 1960 were being laid to rest, to lay the wreath on their graves and also to remember them, because the freedom that we enjoy today is because of their death. But other than that, we have got also, other than celebrating or commemorating and remembering those heroes, there are also important people that has played role in the history and the life of our people. Dr. Hunong, that is known, having written the songs, composed the songs, and written the songs on choral music and for religious as well as choral music in general. We're also, as CDB municipality, handing over the tombstone that we have erected for the Hunong, Dr. Hunong and his wife. They were both teachers, both in Mehuno and Tate Hunong were both teachers. So we're handing over the grave, they erected the tombstone to the family. But after that, we came here where we are, at the Human Rights Memorial Site that was unveiled officially by Nelson Mandela, our former president. May his soul rest in peace. We came here to also symbolically lay the wreath on the symbolic stone and also lay the wreath on the 69 pillars that are here in the memorial site, symbolizing and representing 69 souls that were shot that day. So that is what basically has happened. Then after this, we'll be moving to the main event of the day. We'll be going to the rally, where the rally will be addressed by our MEC in Gauteng province, Mayatola Khoza, in place of the Premier David Makura, who is attending the funeral of the Minister Chabani, who died last weekend on an accident. So that will be the main event after we have come move out of the precinct here. So that's basically what is happening today. But we are saying to the people of South Africa, your blood that was shed in Sharpeville, the blood that was shed in Langa, and all over the country, that blood has been recognized by the world. Hence today, the world also commemorate this day, celebrate this day, by having been declared a day of the war against racialism. Racial discrimination, yes.
If we look at the struggles today, what are some of the struggles are we still needing to fight for?
We have passed the type of the struggle that we are fighting. We are fighting for the basic human rights, like people were fighting against dumpers, and so today we have got in terms of the constitution in our country, everybody has got their human rights covered. Our struggle today, we still wage the struggle against inequalities. We are still waging a struggle against poverty. We are still waging a struggle against unemployment, and also we are still waging a struggle against a number of social ills that are still taking place in our communities. Like abuse of drugs. Abuse of nyaupe in particular by the young people, abuse of alcohol and all other substances that are destroying our communities. So that's basically the struggle that we are fighting now. But key on all those, we fight in the struggle for economic emancipation of our people. And we call on the young ones that they must arm themselves. During those days when the Sharpeville people were killed, they were armless, but later the liberation movement armed itself. For example, ANC formed Mkondo Wesizwe, and then PAC formed APLA, so that they can arm and fight the regime at that time armed. But after freedom now, the ammunition that we need is education, education, and education. So I'm appealing to all our youth that let us arm ourselves. The weapon that we need to economically emancipate all of us is education and education and education and discipline and high morals in the society. That's what we need today.
That is the Executive Mayor in Sedibeng, just highlighting the struggles that many young people face today. It is calling on economic emancipation and just encouraging youth everywhere just to educate themselves. Back to the studio in Johannesburg.
Thank you. That's Gillian Pillay out in Sharpeville. Now to take those issues further, I'm now very pleased to be joined in studio by the Deputy Director from the Open Society Initiative for South Africa, Diseke Kasambala, and of course the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa, Butane. Ladies, a very good afternoon to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ladies, let's get right to it. In 21 years of democracy, what's the status of the socio-economic and political rights in the country? Let's start with you, Diseke.
I think the country has come very far. You know, there's been huge progress when you look at economic, social and cultural rights and civil and political rights. Nonetheless, there's still a lot that needs to be done. And sometimes we've seen some problems in terms of regression. And I'm talking about issues like access to housing, issues like access to water and sanitation services. You look at some of the townships, people are protesting because they don't have these basic services when they should have them. So while we've come a long way, the country still needs to do more. And what we're seeing is issues of corruption are increasingly affecting people's basic rights. You know, the textbook scandal, for example, that took place in Limpopo a few years back, that had an effect on people's rights to education, on pupils and students' right to education. What we see in terms of the poor rollout of basic services when it comes to housing in many townships, not just in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, the increasing inequality, you know, in society in South Africa now is also of huge concern. Because when you look at the rights in the Constitution, the right to be equal before the law, equality for all, human dignity, all these are not being realized sufficiently by this government.
What do you think, Selimpil?
Well, thanks again, Alicia. You know, I think at this point, as a country, we are both we've achieved so much, but at the same time, we are almost becoming our worst enemy. Because as Diseke has said, we have come a long way in terms of, for instance, enacting legislation that promotes socio-economic rights, but also the protection of political and civil rights. But at the same time, in terms of the implementation, what we're seeing on the ground is a regression. You know, so we have this great legal and policy framework, but the implementation on the ground is almost taking us back now, you know, from a democratic dispensation, almost taking us back to the apartheid. In fact, it's almost ironic that we are today commemorating Sharpeville Day, because what we are seeing, for instance, in terms of police brutality in South Africa, you know, what is it saying? What have we learned, for instance, from experiences like those?
Ladies, look, the recent spike in school racial or tribal intolerance has also become a huge issue, and I don't think we can talk about the other without really delving into that other issue. What is your take on the current status in terms of racial intolerance in the country, Diseke?
I think it's worryingly on the increase. But at the same time, I think the problem is the issue of race has not been properly debated in South Africa. There is a need for greater debate. You know, civilized debate about what it actually means to be in this rainbow nation. And so what we're having is people who are resentful because they feel that they cannot speak out. A minority group, in terms of maybe a white minority, that is feeling increasingly isolated and marginalized. Whether they're right or wrong is not the question. It's about whether they have the ability to speak out, you know, in a tolerant manner about these issues. And I think there is a need for that debate here in South Africa, because we keep seeing all these incidents and they're piling up, and then people are becoming increasingly polarized. You have people on one side and others on the other side. It's like going back to those days of apartheid where it was us versus them. Instead of people coming together and saying, let's talk about this. Let's talk about these issues. Why do we have these incidents of racism? Why do we have these incidents of intolerance? And what can we as a nation jointly do together, black, white, Indian, colored?
You know what worries me, Skalimpilo, before you answer, is the fact that it's actually happening to the future generation. It's actually starting at school level. And a lot of people are blaming the parents for the fact that they're the ones that are actually teaching them the wrong history. Right. What do you say to that?
Okay, before I answer your question directly, let me just say that I think the fact that the president did mention the need for the country to rededicate itself towards eradicating racism in the country just shows the gravity of the matter. And also the fact that as a country we have grappled over the past few years with finalizing the National Action Plan on addressing racism, racial intolerance, xenophobia, and related intolerances just says how much these issues are contentious. So in terms of what you are asking now with regards to where exactly is the source, you know, I think the indictment is on all of us as a society. Yes, we can blame the parents. So I think from a societal point of view, it's important, for instance, for us to be promoting the values of peaceful coexistence. But at the same time, it is important to give space for those people who feel that they are not at peace with what has happened, you know, and I think that space is often closed down because we want everyone to be fine with it. But it is not useful to be fine with it on the outside, but when people are actually not fine with it at a deeper level, because then we are going to continue to see incidences like those. The other important, I think, stakeholder here is the Department of Education, because they get, you know, they play a crucial role in terms of the formative years, you know, of the future leaders of South Africa. So I know, for instance, that a couple of years ago, they had a unit within the Department of Education called Race and Values. And the idea was really to promote issues around peaceful coexistence, addressing issues of prejudice from a very young age, so that children really understand the importance of living and understanding the different races. So I think it's really a duty for all of us, including government, also to lead in this process.
Just like, but how do we then promote that social cohesion as a nation?
I think it should start, like people were saying, she's talking about it at the level of level of government. It's about leadership as well. And, you know, and sometimes I think the leaders in South Africa have not always stepped up to the plate. I'm glad President Zuma referred to the need to address this issue. But you see at leadership level, very intolerant remarks being made on different sides, whether it's, for example, it's the EFF or it's the DA or the ANC. And that kind of polarization starts at leadership level. The young people of today are watching these leaders at this table, not necessarily addressing the issues of race in a tolerant manner. And it's always underlying in these debates and in these discussions, but it's not openly discussed. You know, and that's what we need. We need a society which is able to openly discuss issues of race without fear of censorship, even if what is being said is unpalatable to many, you know, or to some. But that robust debate is not yet there. And I think that's the only way you can get social cohesion, when people feel that they can say what needs to be said without feeling like what they're saying is, you know, is not going to be heard. So there's a lot of need, I think, for debates. And I think the universities have a role to play in encouraging this type of debates. These types of debates should be taking place at primary school level, but also at the leadership level, where you see a united DA, you see a united EFF and a united ANC coming together and addressing these issues together as political parties.
Speaking of openly discussing issues, we wouldn't be fair if we didn't, of course, look at the gender and sexual preference and even the religious intolerance that's currently going on in the country. Please go ahead, Skalimpilo.
You know, I mean, I think as a country, in fact, we've come a long way again on that one. We currently, part of what we've been doing, for instance, as Amnesty, together with other organizations, is to lobby for the introduction of hate crimes legislation in South Africa, so that the country can be able to criminalize, for instance, acts of prejudice towards people who belong to a particular social group, for instance, the LGBTI communities, or if they are foreign nationals and they are being attacked based on those grounds. So, but I think there's still a lot to be done in terms of educating, for instance, a lot of public education, but also issues around prevention, protection, and justice, you know, that has to be really enhanced from the government point of view, so that we don't consistently continue to see the violations that we see currently happening.
Please go ahead and put your input there, Disek.
No, I think the country is going in the right direction when it comes to issues of sexual orientation domestically. The hate crimes working group that is currently there has been doing a great job. But like Bill says, more needs to be done in terms of increasing that those levels of tolerance amongst the various institutions, like the police, for example, who hear some of these cases. I think there's a lot, maybe we can debate it, on the issue of xenophobia. That is something that's worrying me. These increasing attacks against foreign nationals are worrying me. Some of the statements that have been made by people in leadership are also worrying me. You know, so that level of intolerance is something that really needs to be discussed. But in some aspects, the country is doing well. But in other aspects, when it comes to tolerance for foreign nationals, in particular, it's highly problematic.
And let's delve really into that. But ladies, let's look behind us here. We can see this is where, of course, the official event is currently taking place in Uitenhage. And as you can see, some ladies there, clad in their traditional wear, already doing a performance there. We will be getting more of those visuals as we continue with the show. Now, ladies, let's expand more on that. I really want us to talk about the xenophobic attacks on foreign nationals. We saw this, the scourge again rearing its head, and we saw the foreign national shops being looted. We saw everything happening, and it just spilled across the nation. What did you make of those, Selimpil?
You know, really, this is a complex issue, if I may put it like that. Firstly, I think for us as an organization, it's quite disturbing when you have the political leadership, instead of taking decisive action in condemning and ensuring that the violence stops, but spending so much energy debating whether it's a xenophobic or it's a criminal act. The fact of the matter is that people were being attacked, their property was being destroyed, and that called for decisive, quick action from the leadership. Right. One of the things that we've also been consistently calling for, and which we continue to call for, is, you know, a national strategy to address this issue around xenophobia, but also ensuring that the justice is really realized for the victims. Because while we have continued to see these attacks happening and also continued to see the copycatting, you know, we had the incident in Soweto. If there had been decisive, quick action, I honestly do not think that this would have spread to other localities, right? But because the attacks on foreign nationals have been happening for so many years, and the perpetrators have been getting away with it. So people know that I can just go, you know, to a Somali shop, you know, and loot or kill them. And of course, maybe I may be arrested today, 2 weeks down the line, I'm out. So what is the lesson that we are sending? That there is no justice for the victims, and the perpetrators have their free will. You understand? So for us, we are saying we need to really strengthen the justice mechanism so that those who are perpetrating these crimes are held to book. But also, as I said earlier, you know, it's quite an indictment on South Africa as a country that's looked upon in terms of the upholding, you know, international human rights law. When we have failed as a country to really finalize a national action plan to address racism, as I said, and xenophobia. You know, because if that plan were to be finalized, I'm sure there would be a lot of strategies that could come out of it that would then assist in addressing some of these injustices that we are seeing.
And we'll continue with those discussions. But now, the South African Human Rights Commission is investigating the issuing of Dompa-style green cards to domestic and garden workers in Worcester in the Western Cape province of South Africa. Now, this is the brainchild of the local community policing forum. They say the move follows a spike in burglaries as well as theft. The controversial green cards have since been withdrawn.
The Dompas, an Afrikaans word meaning the dam pass, a dominant feature in South Africa's apartheid system. The black population was required to carry these passbooks when outside their homelands or designated areas. Failure to produce a pass often resulted in the person being arrested. Pass laws provided the apartheid government with a convenient means of controlling workers' mobility. These passes became the most despised symbols of apartheid. 21 years since the dawn of South Africa's democracy, a similar system was enforced in Worcester in the Western Cape. It's dubbed the modern-day Dompas, bearing the photographs and details of mostly black and coloured workers in the area.
This is Panorama, an affluent suburb in the small town of Worcester. This is where domestic workers and gardeners were required to have a green card to access the area.
The system was introduced last June by the Sector Community Policing Forum in a bid to reduce crime. The forum couldn't comment on the matter. But workers in the area confirm that those who do not have the card are treated as potential criminals. Mariana Nimant has lived in the area for many years. She says she endorses the idea of the cards based on security and safety in the area.
I feel it is very safe to do that, and it will help the people that stay in this area and who can come here and who does works here. That will be a very good thing.
While the Human Rights Commission says it will now investigate, it says there is preliminary evidence that the green cards and the dompas are similar.
I think the similarities are quite clear, and they're clear because of this demarcation of public space in a way that excludes and limits the freedom of movement of certain members of society. So it's a violation of human dignity and the right to equality, both of which are founding values of the Constitution.
Many of the workers we approached were reluctant to speak, worried they may lose their jobs. After promising concealed identity, one guard now has been working in the area for 6 years, agreed to talk.
The person who made the green card came to me 2 days ago and he took the card. He said there was a problem. Some people are saying the cards are illegal. So he would hold on to it until all this blows over.
The Commission cannot confirm how long the investigation will take. Nomato Solwandle, SABC News, Cape Town.
Well, before we get the results of what the Commission will find out, let's discuss this issue, ladies. I mean, once again, 21 years of democracy. Do you believe the reasonings behind this modern-day green card or dompas, Tiseg?
I think it's ridiculous that such a thing is happening in this day and age. This return to the apartheid pass laws. And it's ridiculous that this community is being allowed to get away with it. It's racist, but not only that, it violates the right to free movement. People should be able to freely move without being stopped in the streets and asked to provide this form of identity. There may be an issue of crime, yes, that's not being addressed, but I don't think that's the best way to address it. And I certainly hope that the Commission finds that this is wrong. And I think if you look at the rights in the Constitution, you will find that it is wrong because it discriminates, against a group of people. It's mainly colored and black people who have been asked to have this identity on them. But also, as I said, their right to freely move without being asked why they're in a neighborhood and being forced to produce this identity card.
All right, well, we now cross live back to where the main event is currently taking place. And of course, Blaine Herman and Iviwe Poti are currently standing by there in Uitenhage. Let's cross live to Rosedale Field.
Just pick up a bit. Speaker, yeah. Back at the Rosedale Field right here at Uitenhage, Eastern Cape, people are already in high voice and they're already here. They're celebrating Human Rights Day. And, it's all about reflecting on human rights, where we've come as a nation, how our lives have progressed as a nation through human rights, as well as where we're going to in terms of the challenges of social ills that often perpetually violate our human rights. And this is a day where we can reflect on that and say, well, we've got one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, and I guess many people here are proud of that. And they'll be looking to the speakers that are about to take to the stage to give them more insight. This year's theme, remember, is celebrating the Freedom Charter as well as enjoying equal human rights for all. And I think that's very, very important. We're about to speak to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. He's just getting ready. He's going to give a keynote address right here. Among other speakers, the Premier of the Eastern Cape as well. He'll be here. Now, we've got the Minister right here. Let me just bring him to us. Minister, thank you very much indeed for your time. If you could just position you here for the camera. Thank you very much indeed. I know you're about to go on stage, but just to have a bit of a chat before you go on, this is indeed an important day. This location is apt. Why is this location such a perfect location for the main celebration for human rights?
Well, we all remember the sad incidents of the massacre of the Uitenhage residents, about 30 years ago, and which again was a follow-on the previous massacre that took place previously in Gauteng, I'm forgetting. But the purpose really is to elevate this incident in our history, because the people who were mowed down by the apartheid regime back then symbolized resistance against oppression, and therefore today has been marked Human Rights Day as a symbol of victory, conquest over oppression, and the advancement of human rights in South Africa. And therefore, we as South Africans use these days and use places like this to remind ourselves that the hard-earned human rights that we enjoy today, the kind of Constitution and Bill of Rights that we are all benefiting from, did not come on a silver platter. Some people died for it.
Indeed, a lot of people died for it. Apart from here in Uitenhage, the Langa township, we talk about Sharpeville, 1960, 69 people died, 180 people were wounded. We look at Langa outside Cape Town. It's 55 years already.
Yes.
You've been tasked with a very important task today, delivering the keynote address right here at the main celebrations. What can we expect?
Well, let me say, actually, my feelings are a little bit split, because it so happens that today is also the funeral of the late Minister Collins Chabani, who I had the privilege of working close with even before I joined cabinet or the executive. So, he lived just a few kilometers in Limpopo, where I come from originally. So, in a sense, my heart is half here and half there. But the emphasis is going to be on public education, on the Bill of Rights, and this human rights that everybody talks about, but which sometimes people don't get to know exactly what they are. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to educate and re-educate and remind our people exactly what these rights are and what they mean in their lives.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this day and age, celebrating, 21 years of democracy, do you think people know enough about their human rights?
Well, I think that if people knew enough, not only about their rights, but about how to give expression to those rights, how to realize the rights, we would have less protests in the country, especially violent ones, because people would know that in South Africa today, we don't only have this right, but we've created the institutional arrangements and the support system to enable people to realize these rights. For example, talking of justice, we have the Legal Aid South Africa, which is an agency of government that is there to provide free legal assistance to people, to enable them to protect and promote their rights through the courts. We have courts which are independent, which are impartial, and which are a breath of fresh air from what we used to have under apartheid. And one can go on listing the Human Rights Commission, the Public Protector, all these institutions that are provided by the state to assist people to enforce their rights. It's just a matter of how well do people know about these institutions and how to access them and to use them to realize these rights.
Minister, thank you very much indeed for your time. We'll let you get on with the business of the day. I'm sure you'll have an important task delivering to the nation what human rights is all about. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Representing the president is not that easy.
Best of luck to you on that. Langa Massacre is the Justice and Correctional Services Minister, about to give the keynote address. When he does, we'll cut to the stage. But first, let me hand it to my colleague Evie, who's standing by. Evie.
Blaine, you will remember that it's right here in Uitenhage at Meduna Road where the police opened fire 30 years ago on a group of about 1,000 people. So having the celebration right here at home in Uitenhage for the people of Uitenhage is very important. So we speak to some people from Uitenhage to find out how they feel today. Hello, Sisinjani.
Hola, Sisinjani Lunjani.
Zibanjani wena namhlanje bayifumene inkululeko kunye namalungelo akho.
Nginamademba tyatyami. Ndisuka eBhayi eJoslovo kaWard 41. Phantsi kokansila uMbongeni Bhungane. Ndiziva ndonwabile ngale mini sisi wam. Kwelinye icala kubuhlungu. Ndivuyiswa yinto enye ba esi sikhumbuzo sikwalanga apho la maxhoba ayeleli khona. Kwakunge-21 kaMatshi 1985 ukudutyulwa kwala maqhawe. Apha kula maqhawe ndinobrother wam. Kwela litye lesikhumbuzo ungunumber 19 uthoba ilizwe maneni.
Inkosi kakhulu siswam. Bhuti wam, singathi wena uziva njani namhlanje banifumene inkululeko kwakunye nokubaluleka kwale mini yanamhlanje kwabantu bakwaLanga?
First siswam, it was cruel to die for those people that way. In 1985, they were killed brutally. But I'm coming here today to say, comrades, thank you. Thank you to bring freedom to us. We are happy today. We are free to speak. We are free to toy. We are free to strike. You see, that is the freedom they brought out of their plight. Manda!
That's the people of Uitenhage. Alicia, in a very celebratory mood. Back to you in studio.
Thank you to Evie Wepoti and Blaine Herman there in Uitenhage. And of course, Blaine Herman spoke to the Minister of Justice there, Mr. Michael Massacre, who will be delivering the keynote address. So stay tuned right here for more on that. But I'm still joined here in studio by Ms. Diseke Kasambala. She's the Deputy Director for the Society Initiative for Southern Africa. And of course, Ms. Sisi Uscelimpilo Shange. She is the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa. Ladies, thank you so much once again. Now, before we crossed over to Uitenhage, we wanted your comments, Kelimpilo, about the new modern day Dompas.
I mean, you know, for us, it was really such a shock to learn about that, because it really touches to the issue of human dignity. So are we saying the workers in the community as, you know, are they... I even failed to describe it, but really, it's discrimination, it's disrespect, utter disrespect for people's dignity. In fact, it's just fueling the issues around divisions that we as a country are grappling with, and that we are saying we need to really put our hands together and work on. So as an organization, really, it is an act that we condemn. And we hope that, you know, the findings from the Human Rights Commission would be able to then assist in terms of addressing this particular incident, but also setting precedents for preventing future incidents which might happen like this. Yes.
Just like.
Yes, I think like Mpilo, I think it's really sad that in this day and age this type of thing is happening. But the good thing is that there are institutions like the South African Human Rights Commission that can look into such issues. And come out with findings and recommendations for how to deal with them. So I think that's the important thing. But certainly, it also reflects on the growing levels of intolerance, the growing polarization that we're seeing in the country that I still think is not being adequately addressed by the leadership. So we have this strong constitution, we have these strong institutions that are dealing with such. But I think at that level, there's not enough that is being done. And it's very sad that we can have such incidents taking place in this day and age. But nonetheless, these problems are there across the country. At Human Rights Watch, there was a research that went into how farm workers are treated in the Western Cape, which found that they're still being paid with wine. So a replication of the DOP system that was taking place during apartheid era, people are still being paid with wine in some cases in the Western Cape. And these incidents are not being addressed and looked at in the entirety to say there must be some connections there. They're not just isolated incidents. They're a reflection of what's happening to the country.
Do you think our judiciary is strong enough to deliver justice when we need it to in such matters, Mpilo?
You know, I think earlier I did say that one of the shortcomings really is around issues of ensuring justice in this country. It doesn't matter which rights violation has happened, you know, across the various spheres, across the various rights spaces. The justice system has really, in the large parts, has really failed victims of many of these rights violations. I mean, we do acknowledge, you know, in cases where, for instance, there have been progressive judgments, you know, that have been made in terms of ensuring that people's rights are realized. But I think we still can do more. The justice system really still needs to pick up. You know, one of the things is really also just around issues of language. You know, when a person goes to court and they don't speak the language, this is not all the time that there are interpreters that are available to ensure that people can freely, you know, express themselves so that they can present their cases the way that the way they are. You see, so things like those are things that we need to look at, not necessarily only when we get to the judgment part of the justice system. Yes.
We need to look at them holistically.
Yes,
Thank you for that.
yes,
Well, while Sharpeville is internationally remembered, few remember what happened the day in Langa on the Cape Flats. The PAC's Positive Action campaign called on people to leave their passbooks at home and march to local police stations. Residents of Langa adhered to this call, but just like in Sharpeville, a meeting that started out peacefully would end in tragedy.
21 March 1960. Thousands gathered here at a spot called Washington Square today. Also in the crowd, Standard 1 boy Sonwabo Williams.
What I remember that day, you see, the old people, they told us there will be a meeting here only for the old people, not for the children. So when we see the tank coming inside Langa, we did not know what happened, and all the children, they followed the tank up to the army tank up to the flats here, and here there was a meeting here.
At 63, Williams still has vivid memories of that day. Leading the thousands was Philip Khosana, a 23-year-old student and PAC leader.
I found Tom completely challenged to be able to respond to the call of our people who had supported our strike. It was too massive for me, but I must say, although I was still young at the age of 23, I had probably more confidence than I have today.
To a young boy like Williams, Khosana was a hero.
Khosana was addressing the people. So since we were children, it was difficult for us to listen what is happening.
The plan was to march peacefully to Langa police station and turn themselves in for arrest. Shirley Gunn is the director of the Human Rights Media Centre. The centre plays a role in the memorialization of South Africa's history. Gunn was part of the Langa Memorial Collective, the team who constructed this structure in memory of the events of that day.
If those arrests were made, then there would be a dent on the economy, because no bread would be delivered the next day, no milk would be delivered, no newspapers. The industry would come to a standstill because the black working class would be behind bars.
The march was called off at the last moment, and following the Sharpeville killings, police were on high alert, patrolling the streets and banning all public meetings. But later that evening, protesters slowly started gathering in Langa again.
The police, they wanted to disperse the people like that. They must all go now. Now they start to shoot the people, and there were people on the top of these flats. And people were flying from the top of the flats down because there's no other way. And some of them today are cripples today, I can say. Whether we don't know them, who are they, you see? But they are cripples. How can you fly from the top down?
By the end of the day, 3 people were shot and killed. Many more were wounded. Williams clearly remembers what happened next.
That time, ma'am, I ran home because I've got a rifle, a battle rifle. We used to buy a battle rifle. Then when I come home, I take my rifle.
A real rifle?
No, a real. It's a battle rifle.
Okay.
That one you put pellets. Yeah, we will put pellets, yeah. Then I go on top of the roof because I don't stay here. I stay that side. I go on top. I said to my father, I'm going to shoot these people. Then my father was afraid because the soldiers are going to shoot me, thinking that it is a real gun. Because I thought maybe I can fight with it. You see? That time I was a child.
9 days later, Khosana led a march of 100,000 to Parliament, hoping to see the then Justice Minister, J.B. Vorster.
There was 100,000 people with Philip Khosana in the lead marching to Parliament, to town, to the police station, Caledon Square in Cape Town. A massive, massive march. Unprecedented, actually.
That same day, a state of emergency was declared and the PAC and ANC were banned. And these events changed the course of South African history. Today, the Langa Memorial honors the courage and sacrifices of those who fought for that change. It reminds residents of the integral role that Langa played.
Langa Township and the other surrounding townships like Nyanga West, which is called Guguletu today, and Nyanga East, happen to be the focal point of a political party called the Pan-African Congress under Robert Sobukwe, which reflected a lot of hard work in organizing the people and convincing the people about the correctness of opposing the past laws. Therefore, Langa became the burning point, the crucible of what was happening.
Today, Sonwabo Williams finds it sad that the younger generation don't fully grasp the historical value of their day. But his memories are still fresh, and he often thinks of those days.
Maibuye Africa. Africa must come back. Maibuye means Africa must come. We greet like this.
Abra Barbia, SABC News, Cape Town.
Well, let's now cross live to our reporter, Nomawethu Solwandle, who's outside the Langa Massacre precinct. Nomawethu, a very good afternoon to you. What's going on in Langa right now?
Good afternoon to you once again, Alicia, and welcome back to Langa in the Western Cape, where a number of PAC members have gathered once again to remember the fallen heroes that died here on the 21st of March 1960, a very historical township. We're actually at the Robert Sobukwe Square, and this is where the people convened on the 21st of March 1960. Now, earlier on, we spoke to someone who was at the forefront of that march in 1960, Utatu Philip Khosana. But now joining us is the provincial secretary of the party in the Western Cape, Mr. Lulamile Ntonzima. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
A very special occasion here in Langa in the Western Cape today?
Yes, of course, because especially in the sense that the PAC have made the history and the people of this country benefited out of that history. Indeed, the intention was not to get our people murdered by the racist apartheid government. It was to make sure that our people have a freedom of movement and our people fear nothing from the authorities. They must be affirmed in terms of their right to speak their mind and their right to walk anywhere. and to demand the dignity of being the African people in their own African country without deterrence of the apartheid system.
Now, 55 years later after that incident, we stand here. So much has gone on within the party, political party issues, and I mean, the people that you have, the person that you have standing for you in Parliament. Just comment on where the party is standing at this point.
Currently, the party has a rep in Parliament of the acting president of the PAC, Lutando Mbinde. The fact of the matter is correct that the PAC National Executive Committee has its own internal fights that affect the party that we cannot deny because at the public domain. But the party structures, and the party structures in the Western Cape in particular, has made it very clear that any dispute leadership that exists in any party, its resolution lies at the electing Congress. We are due to the electing Congress of the PAC in July. If we are late, we should be electing in September this year, 2015, which is a hope we have that it will put into rest the issue of leadership dispute at the national level. Definitely sure that dispute has an impact on the performance of the PAC when it comes to elections. Hence we had what we had from the last elections. But we are fairly sure that the PAC is on course to resuscitate the organizational stature, to contest the political power in this country. Of course, our relevance will ever be needed in terms of solving the current challenges facing our socio-economic conditions by virtue of our national issues we raise indefinitely around issues of economic redistribution in this country.
You talk about socio-economic issues. We stand here where people died, where people were injured. What's the situation in Langa in terms of human rights?
My dear, the state of the country generally in terms of socio-economic conditions is not peculiar only to the conditions of Langa. It's not in good conditions. The economic performance of this country is not covering every citizen to find life to live. The issue of Langa becomes worse. You see here, we're sitting in flats where our marchers in 1960 were staying. These flats are still in the same conditions. These are hostels, same conditions. You go to surroundings of the Langa, there's nothing that is happening in terms of the economic activity. The conditions of this township, the conditions of the inhabitants in this township are worse than even before. And that's a challenge to the ruling party as of what it does to make sure our people's socio-economic condition changes for the better. Taking the slogan of economic better conditions into reality and the realization of their upliftment. That is not a reality as we talk. Of course, it is a worry to the PAC because this is our stronghold.
Thank you very much for your time. Well, that was Mr. Lulamile Ntonzima. He is the provincial secretary of the PAC here in the Western Cape. Indeed, we are coming to you live from the Robert Sobukwe Square here in Langa in the Western Cape. I'm just going to move out of shot so that my colleague can show you what's happening on the podium here. The program is already underway. We can see the pastor starting the program. We see people from young and old who have gathered here to remember the fallen heroes that died on the 21st of March in 1960. And what you see there is a monument that was erected in 2010 so that people can often come here and see what happened in Langa in the Western Cape on the 21st of March in 1960. With that, it's back to you in the studio, Alicia.
Thank you so much. That's Numawethu Solwandle there at the Robert Sobukwe Square, giving us a rundown of what's currently taking place. We are expecting Justice Minister Michael Masuta to deliver the keynote address anytime at the main event. Of course, the venue there is, of course, in Uitenhage, and we have our reporters standing by there. But back to our discussion here in studio. Ladies, we're speaking about judiciary and how it's come under the spotlight, especially in the past years. Speaking of which, now, the police have been a very big thorn in our midst. And, of course, there are serious concerns about the conduct and the capacity that the South African Police Service is currently conducting. And the question there is, do you think that the issue of the police conduct is being adequately addressed by government? Mpilo, let's start with you this time.
You know, this is one of the most critical issues for the country because the police is a service that is supposed to bring out confidence within the country. So these are men and women that we are supposed to rely on, for safety and security. But as you are saying, at the moment, we have lost trust in the police. We have had incidences like Marikana, where unlawful decisions were taken from very high levels within the police service, where it resulted in the death of so many minors. We have had the incident of a Mozambican man who was wrecked by the police, behind the police van. So it's a critical issue that needs to be addressed, as you were saying, both from a capacity point of view, but also from the political leadership and willingness point of view. So I think we are also encouraged by the fact that at the moment there is a process that the police is currently undertaking. So I think in 2013 they actually published a green paper on the police, and now they've recently published a white paper on the police and their safety and security in the country. And what's encouraging is that some of the green paper, in fact, in terms of how it was framed, was really almost also had some elements of prejudice on its own as a document coming from the police service, right? But now what is encouraging is that with the white paper, at least I think they did take into consideration some of the submissions that were made during the green paper stage. So we are hoping that if they can also, I think the sad part is that the period for submissions is a very short period. I think it's closing on the 31st of March. But if they can take into consideration some of the recommendations that will come, for instance, from organizations and institutions that are really working with the police, who have noted many of these shortcomings, we may be moving in the right direction. But there's still a lot of work to be done there.
There's serious work that still needs to be done. Well, let's cross live now to our reporter, Gillian Pillay, who's at the exhibition center of the Sharpeville Massacre Museum. Gillian, a very good afternoon to you. Give us the latest there from Sharpeville.
Good day, Alicia. Yes, as we said earlier, a lot of celebratory scenes playing out here in Sharpeville. As we said, Sharpeville very significant, particularly because many seeing that 1960 march some 55 years ago as quite a watershed moment in the political landscape of the country, but also quite significant because in 1996, the then President Nelson Mandela signed the Constitution here in Sharpeville. As you said, we are here in the exhibition center. What is quite significant about this center is it bears all the memorabilia of massacres that took place in Sedibeng. Quite significant on a day like today. But what is very significant here is the Sharpeville massacre that really stands out here. Stunning black and white photographs taken by very good photographers showcasing what happened on that day. But I'm now joined by a survivor, Abraham Mofokeng. Abraham Mofokeng was 19 years old on the day. Abraham, Mr. Mofokeng, take us through what do you remember about that day?
On that day, I remember when we marched to Sharpeville police station. The message was to hand ourselves for arrest since we were not carrying passes. And this felt bad for the leaders of this country, because a black person in this country had no freedom of speech. We had no freedom of movement. We had no vote. You couldn't work where you like. You couldn't stay where you like. Every movement was decided by our government through the Dompas laws. That is the reason we marched to the police station. There has been a long play of negotiation by the leaders of that day, like Mandela's, Tambo's, Sizulu's. Their message was felt into the deaf ears of the apartheid regime. Since then, the government of the day banned the organizations, looking up the leaders. The president of the PAC, who was a member of the ANC, but after the banning and the restrictions of the movement of the people, he took to himself to form a Pan-African Congress of Azania. He then made and send a message loud and clear to the government of the day after forming the PAC in 1959 on the 3rd of September, that there will be a peaceful march throughout the country, and the masses will hand themselves to the police stations at 8 o'clock. They will be carrying no passes. It was clear that there will be no bail, no fine, no defense. That was the reason we were at the police station. We were there to hand ourselves for arrest. That means it didn't sound well, since in the past laws, there were laws forbidding black people from not carrying passes of any freedom of movement. That's the reason, I think, was the reason why they shot us.
Just take us through, what do you remember? You said it started off as a peaceful march and things just quickly turned into a massacre. Talk to us about, what do you remember as a 19-year-old?
I remember we were singing at the police station. We started at 8, but from different directions, because the march did not go according to plan, because the police were patrolling around the area, dispersing people, beating, charging them, getting dogs, bites. We came as peaceful as we are from all directions till we met at 12 o'clock. From 8 o'clock to 12, we started singing songs of Senzenina, Senzenina, Africa Maibuye, Africa Isolate. Then at 2 o'clock, it sounded so bad, we had a loud bang of bullets sounding. We did not believe, because people were not fighting, we were just singing. We dispersed, we ran in all directions, different directions, running away for a place of safety. People were falling in front of us. I jumped over an old lady who was shot from behind. His chest was blown out. The second one, his head was blown out. Some were flying over my head. We were scared, running around looking for a place where to hide. Then they shot me on my right-hand foot. I lost my shoe there. We ran like people who had no direction where to go, which way to go. Calling to the place of safety, then I heard a bullet hitting me from my back, locked in my spinal cord, still locked now as I'm talking now.
How did you feel, Pa, when you saw all your comrades dispersed, injured? I mean, you explain in quite graphic scenes. How did you feel?
It was bad. We felt it was bad. It was merciless. It is merciful. We lost our mind. We didn't know what happened, what really happened, what really caused for these people to shoot. That is, I'm still embarrassed till now. Why did they shoot? Because there was no sign of attack from our people. We were only singing, as I'm saying now, we were singing, chanting slogans and all that.
What do you think are the struggles today that needs to be to make this country a better country? What do you think are the most things that stand out for you as a senior citizen of the community? What struggles need to be taken up today?
We have to understand each other patiently. The country belongs to us. Everybody is free. Even the perpetrators of violence of the past regime, we are enjoying the fruits of the country together. We are meeting together, hand in hand. What I'm praying for, we should understand each other and forgive each other. But we cannot forget the past, because as the day is done today, it remembers what happened, where we come from. So we cannot forget where we come from. We can forgive, but not forget.
And that is Abram Mofokeng, one of the survivors, giving us a real message on this Human Rights Day, that we should work towards forgiveness, towards understanding one another. Forgive, but we can't forget. Back to the studio in Johannesburg.
Thank you so much to Gillian Pillay there at the Sharpeville Massacre Museum, painting us a picture of what's currently going on there. Let's now cross live to the Rosedale Field in Uitenhage, where our reporters Blaine Herman and, of course, Ivoire Porte are on standby to give us more updates. Ivoire, it's over to you.
Hi, Alicia, and it's starting to really fill up right here at the tent in Rosedale. But now with me, I have the Acting Director General, Vuyo, who's going to speak to us a bit more about social cohesion going forward. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please just tell us a bit more about the plans going forward as arts and culture in terms of social cohesion?
So in 2012, we had a social cohesion summit whereby there were 12 resolutions. And then we said in the 2014-15 year, we're going to be having a report back summit whereby we're going to be looking at how the resolutions have been implemented. And that is why we're coming back to here to PE to look at the report back summit, whereby we're going to be looking at what progress have we made, but also looking forward. What can we do to actually enhance social cohesion and nation building? So that's quite an important thing, to be able to have ownership of social cohesion in the communities. And that is why we're involving as well having social cohesion advocates to be able to be placed in certain communities who can be able to engage with the people on the issues that are relevant to the day. And then through that, we can be able to build compacts, social cohesion compacts, that we as a nation can be able to say, this is my responsibility, and you're also taking responsibility for all the parties around, so that we can be able to make sure that we have a united nation. So it's quite an important day, and this is also an important day to lead up to that social cohesion report back summit.
Alicia, that was the Acting Director General of Arts and Culture, Mr. Vuyo Jack. Back to you in studio.
To Ivoire Porte, live to us where the main event is taking place at the Rosedale Field out in Uitenhage. We'll have more in a short while, where, of course, Minister Michael Masuta is expected to deliver the keynote address any time for now. But, ladies, let's continue. I want to hear your comment, Tiseke, while we're still discussing our judiciary and, of course, the fact that we've lost faith in the police. Will we not then become a lawless society?
Yes, I think there's room for extensive police reforms, and Pilo earlier talked about some of the reforms. But I think for me, the main concern is we are seeing an increasing securitization of the state and an increasing militarization of the police in South Africa, which is harking back to those apartheid days, those dark days of apartheid. When you look at what happened in Parliament, for example, where you had police and security forces coming into Parliament and pushing out MPs, when you look at the cell phone blackout, you look at certain comments by the Minister of State Security, that is all linked also to what's happening within the police. The police are behaving as if they are under attack. So when you have protests around poor access to basic services or social service delivery, the police go in there as if they are attacking the enemy. They go in a militaristic way. So the response is always militaristic. And that's hugely problematic. So when we're talking about this comprehensive police reform, we need to address these issues. Why are the police going into these places when they're trying to police or end police protests, peaceful protests? Why do they go in as if they're attacking the enemy?
Some protests are violent, to be
quite
honest.
They're certainly violent, I think, and I totally agree with you. But there are methods, around addressing that type of violence that we see during some of these protests. The use of deadly force is only required when there is a significant threat to the population or to the police themselves, if their lives are coming under threat. But quite often you see, protests kind of burning schools and etc., and police coming in there as if they're being fired upon, instead of trying to use other methods of policing which are actually there. So I think another issue is one of training as well. Proper training in how to properly enforce policing during protests is something that I think is also lacking, and I'm hoping that these reforms and this white paper is going to address, because it's highly problematic. But like I said, the other angle is more political, which is, why is there this increasing securitization of the state in South Africa? Why is that the case? Because that is also directly linked to how the police themselves behave.
Is that your view, Bilo?
Yes, I mean, we completely concur with what Diseke has said. I think in some of the reports, in fact, as Amnesty has done, we have highlighted these issues, which is why earlier I was saying in terms of the white paper, for instance, they are, touching on issues like this, demilitarizing the police, for instance, so that it really responds, as she is saying, someone was saying, you can't respond to a mouse energy with an elephant energy, you see, so it's that kind of scenario where the police use excessive force in situations where, in fact, they could have used other, more appropriate responses to diffuse a situation.
But we've seen really violent protests in the country, and I must say that it has looked like some police were really fearing for their lives in some instances.
No, you see, the difference is that the police are trained. So it is not like you just take people from the streets and you say, go and monitor. Exactly. These people will go through training. So I think if we are going to be saying that they respond like that because they fear for their lives, then there's something lacking with regards to the kind of training that they have received. But also it is the issue about the accountability. So if you have been trained as a police officer and you know what you're expected to do in different scenarios, but you act contrary to that, what is it saying? It's because you know you are going to get away with it, right? But also, like I was making the example of Marikana, for instance, where there's been decisions from a high level, within the police service. So even if it's a police officer on the ground, knowing very well that the kind of action that they are going to implement is not the right action. But if there's an instruction, yes, if there's an order, this is what you're going to do, that is what they are going to do. So this is why we need to, when dealing with the police, we need to look from the political leadership down up to the ground.
All right, well, we now cross live back to Uitenhage for the main event. It's about to start. Back to Uitenhage.
Sicela kungabi kompithizelo. Xa sizawucula umhobe wesizwe ongaphandle ame phandle ongaphakathi ahlale phakathi. Simasonke abantu abangotata bathula iminqwazi. Wonke umuntu xa sicula umhobe wesizwe ubeka izandla emacaleni. You stand in attention. Xa sicula umhobe wesizwe. Kuba we are connecting with our identity and our country. The only person that is allowed to put isandla esifubeni is the President of the Republic of South Africa. Apha kuthi sonke akekho upresident. Uba unobeka isandla esifubeni chaza into yoba ungxamile ufuna uba ngupresident. If kuvulwa i-provincial legislatures, umuntu obeka isandla esifubeni iba ngupremier wephondo as a head of iphondo. So ndenzela uba namhlanje xa sithetha nge-30 years yeLanga Massacre, wena ubeka isandla esifubeni, there's a lot that you are saying about you. Ndenzela into yoba ungavela eTVini, kuna SABC, kuna NN7, kuna CNA, wonke umuntu ozawuvela eTVini apha. Ungavela rongo ke utya i-chewing gum. Mbi umuntu otya i-chewing gum sicula umhobe wesizwe. Mbi umuntu ofowunayo othi niyandibona. Ndilapha, sendilapha nantsi i-camera. It watered down what those comrades died for. This is the national anthem that abantu baseNelson Mandela in particular must claim it because the author, Enoch Mankai Sontonga, ngwalapha eTinarha, wabhala the anthem of the continent. Nibonile Zambia kwi-AFCON. They sang the anthem kaSontonga yonke iphelele. Tina, because we're in this democracy, reconciliation, nation building, social cohesion, satata, safagi sunguni, safagi Sotho, safagi Africans, safagi English, sekuba. There's a ndoba ke suikonde ndoba xa sicula the national anthem. Connecta njani now with our past and present. Allow me, ndinicele ndinibongoza into abanime ngenyawo sizawucula umhobe wesizwe. We're going to sing the national anthem of the Republic of South Africa, led by Matthew Singers. That was wonderful. Nonke used to benimekwe attention. Ndicela niziqhwabele ngokucula kahle kangaka umhobe wesizwe. We are gathered here, phansi kwalentente. South Africans are gathered in another similar marquee as they are sending off one of our own. Comrade Unyamazana, Comrade Collins Kachabane. Zawucela siphinde siphakame sinike imbeko eyodwa phaya ePulukwane. Cela siphakame sonke. Mana apho nini? Hamba wesizwe hamba kahle mkhonto wesizwe hamba Thank you very much. Eyokuphuma ke kuni Matthew Singers. Thank you very much, Matthew Singers. Now we'll call Interfaith. My dear leaders from the Interfaith, I'm just informed now that by 12:30, the minister must have addressed this gathering. So it means you have 2 minutes, 2 minutes. It's not out of my own making. I was just informed now. So let's try to economize on time. I was not aware that already we are on live broadcast. I'm told now, so I will request and plead with you into yoba sizame ukuba bafuchane mandivinzolo bethuna ntenteni. Can we be quiet, please? Kwelo cala, please. Now I will call the interfaith prayers. Tata uSheikh Salamtu from Islam. Sicela uze ngaphambili ke bawo wami nizawulandelana njengoba kubhaliwe ku program.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and the blessings of the Almighty God be with you all. Yanguxola ingcebe insikelelo zomdali ngabaphezu kwethu sisonke. Mastanders. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. ربنا افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل كل عواقب أمورنا على الخير بيدك الخير. Oh Allah, make this gathering to beginning with the great blessings and also to continue with your great blessings and also to complete and end with your great blessings. Dali wethu nomhlaba qamatakatayi siyakucela ukuba uyenze le ndibano beyindibano esikelelekileyo ingene ngeentsikelelo zakho iqhube ngeentsikelelo zakho igqibezele ngeentsikelelo zakho. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna lan nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma amin.
Thank you very much, Tata Usalamtu, Inkolo Kantu, Tata Usolwana. Samako.
Kamaku! Kamaku! Ndingutikela ndingunoni ndinguntsweba ndingudlanga sinombumbelanga usazimbelenge ndingunzolo umzila kanzothwana ndingumvetshane ucangathe xefana inkonjane emnyama indize emasini ilinde yokuthwasa ihlobo izokudlisela kwezinye ezantsi wena sikhophe sinisinekelayo yazisinekela ndinguqundela umpafana umvela suthukela ungozi umkhuphukela udla amathibane sobe idlaliwile ndingumakhwanza goduka angaxatywa ithambo lasemzini umlambo omkhulu thukela walasinkonjane bazidlisela ngempiko camakho ndiyacamagusha kwimimoya yasemkhathweni ndicamagusha kwimimoya esengetheni ndicamagusha kwimimoya esemiqolombeni kwimimoya kwingcangcasi camakho kwinkolo yesintu asinazo izibhalo kodwa siye sikhangele kwinjalarha zonothonto ezabhala ezijongomkhayi namhlanje ndiphethe umkhayi ebhalile ngo-1923 ebhala kwiphepha umthetheleli wabantu ubhala athi lathi umkhayi isitathulana nje zesithi sakukhululeka kwingcinezelo yegwanga kuchithwa intlanti ngamadoda kwakhiwa ezintsha kumiswa amatye ezikhumbuzo zabo bazenza idini bafele madabini camakho kuvuselelwa izikumkani kwakhiwa isizwe kugcinwa umthetho kulondolozwe amasiko nezithethe kulinywa amasimi tata umkhayi lowo ngela xesha una-48 years ethetha le nto ngo-1923 yayingakafiki le mini ayengakawa amadoda kwalanga ayengakawa amadoda eSharpeville ubhala le nto kwathiwa uyaphupha namhlanje sikhulekile sikhula ngamadoda azincamayo maqoma ophalo ongqika otshaka hlanga lomhlabathi camakho ndithi makube khosi makubele makuthethe ubumnyama kuvela ukukhanya camakho
naku inkolo kwantu ke leyo silandele ngenkolo ye-Rastafarian awoy awoy more fire more fire more fire more fire awoy Rastafarian
ahoy ahoy in the name of the living and the believing Emperor Haile Selassie I greet you all in the name of the kings and queens, the princes and princesses who must come out of us. Ethiopia shall now stretch forth their hands unto God. O God of Ethiopia, thou hast accepted us in this gathering. How good and how pleasant for us to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon thy dreadlock that ran down upon thy beard, even Papa Aaron's beard that went down to the collar of his garment. To I, it is a day as if I am lifted up by the Almighty eye. Jah! Yes, I see my God coming, taking me up and lifted me and set me before the kings and queens and the princes and the princesses. Princes and princesses must come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall now stretch forth their hands to Jah. O Jah of Ethiopia, our divine majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie, thy children trot to this path, in this path of righteousness. Lead I and I, help I and I, teach I and I love, loyalty on this earth as it is in Zion. And go I and I with wise mind, knowledge, and understanding to do thy will. Amasa! Viva Nelson Holy Spirit Mandela, viva!
Oi, oh, ciao. I'm on fire, I'm on fire. Allow me to invite the Hindu Prabha Hare Krishna over to you, Tata.
Hare Krishna. Can say Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Om Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschata Deshatarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shri Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today we have gathered here to pray, all of us like one family, and we pray that we continue to enjoy our freedom, our life that we have valued, and we be freed. Actual freedom is to gain freedom from all kinds of evil influences that attack us, and keep our mind very peaceful and get our senses, our five senses, our mind always well tuned and very connected to the Almighty, the loving Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is actually, Mahatma Gandhi has said that if you want the change, we have to be the change first, and we have to be very exemplary. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Hindu Prabha Hare Krishna. Now allow me to invite on podium Baha'i Faith, Mr. Fufu from the Baha'i Faith. Uti aga ngubani wena? Unathi futhi utata uthe makaqhuba untombazana liyabonga igama lamakhosikazi. Azi?
Good day. My name is Tahere Lunati Fudu, and I'll be saying a unity prayer. Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge, and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art the helper and their Lord. Baha'u'llah.
Yeah, ugqibile nkosikazi. Xelele. Kuthe kwalapha uThixo enathi. Imani ke ngoko enkululekweni yenu uKristu akathi wanilela kuyo ndibiza inkolo yobuKristu iyakhokhelwa nguBishop uTata uMagcwalisa.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is thy kingdom, thy power, and thy glory forever and ever. Amen. Amen.
Ndiyaniyaleze ebubeleni bukaThixo. uThixo yese unyana nomoya ingcwele bakanisikelelani nilondoloze. Uyova uThixo makabukhanyisa ubuso bakhe kunaniphe uxolo nethemba ngoku nangonaphakade. Amen.
Oh, Interfaith, thank you very much for your understanding. You know it's not always the case that we do this to you. Thank you very much for your leadership and understanding. Ngelixesha ndivumeleni ndicele umphathiswa ojongane nokuhlaliswa koluntu, human settlement, okumntwana walapha eTinarha. MEC, who's also the Deputy Secretary of the ruling party in the African National Congress, Umama Helen August Sol, to do the welcoming on behalf of the Premier.
Amandla awethu malibongwe igama lamakhosikazi. Thank you, Program Director. We apologize, comrades, that we are under pressure. Can I just say all protocol observed at this point to the table and to all dignitaries who will be introduced in due time. On behalf of the Provincial Executive, we would want to extend a word and a bittersweet word, particularly on this day in commemoration of the Langa Massacre, to the families of those heroines and heroes that have fallen on that day. But also in recognizing the immense contribution from the community of Dispatch, where we also have fallen heroines and heroes that were massacred during 1985 in this history of the South African continent. In recognizing the Sharpeville massacre, we are brought to mind that as government, we are continuously faced to ensure that the abuses under the apartheid government never reoccurs again in our history books. We are faced on a day-to-day basis to be the champions of human rights and making sure that we deal with all of the issues of human rights within every aspect of the service delivery chain, irrespective of how small it is, whether it is in the way that we service people, in the manner that we approach our communities, in the recognition of giving respect to all religious beliefs and all cultural beliefs. Those are the values of the African National Congress that we have made sure that this ANC government aspires to and is also enshrined within the Constitution. We are proud of this fact. The reality is, community of Uitenhage, die gemeenskap van Rosedale, dat ons moet seker maak dat in elke dag in ons daaglikse lewe, dat ons nie toelaat dat die menslikheid weggeneem word uit ons gemeenskappe nie. Ons moet seker maak dat waar ons gaan, dat ons mense se waardes respekteer, sodat ons ook gerespekteer kan word op 'n daaglikse basis. Ons konstitusie handhaaf hierdie menseregte, maar elkeen van ons moet op 'n daaglikse basis seker maak dat ons hierdie regte uitoefen en hierdie regte waardeer. Community that is here in front of us in commemorating the 30 years of the Langa Massacre. Let us ensure, as we embrace the families, as we embrace the human rights as enshrined in our Constitution, that we will go from strength to strength, that we will make sure that these abuses never occur again under the banner of this ANC-led government. You are most welcome. Amandla.
Bayatanki Mfro H. Bayatanki Sebulela Kakulu. All other people who are on the program, says Abuya Ngani. Nabantan besikolo na wonke umuntu bekeza ukuthethe programming sabuya ngani. We just want to ensure into ba ngo fast 12 xa kuqhawuka ezinye izinto sesingenile. Vumani ke ndibe buyileqa ndiyame ngo 240 per hour. Ngoku ndizawubiza isithethi sembeko namhlanje. Lowo ngumphathiswa ojongane nezobulungisa ukuphuhliswa komgaqo siseko kunye nezoluleko, Department of Justice, Constitutional Development, as well as Correctional Services. Lowo ayinguye wumbi ngaphandle kotata uMasuta nangu phakathi kwethu kodwa ndiyanqonela into yoba noko imaskwaya nke ndive ikhokhelwa nguComrade uDesi imphakamisa ngoba silwela amalungelo. Imini yamalungelo, this is Human Rights Day. Ndiyamfuna uComrade uDesi esondele ebaleka njengomuntu omtsha kuze asikhokhele sonke sithethe ngasikhathi.
How to lemdana, 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 Silwela malonge. Silwela malongen, Silwela malongen, Tolamdana, Silwela malongen, Silwela malongen, Kautulemdana, Mata, away, two, Mata. Aruna.
Program Director, Honorable Pemima Jodina, as well as all other members of the Provincial Executive or the Provincial Government of the Eastern Cape, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Fisher, and all other mayors from the Eastern Cape and elsewhere who have joined us today. Let me also recognize present here colleagues in the National Executive or the National Government present, as well as all members of Parliament, provincial legislatures, and local government present here. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, allow me, like others, to say all protocol observed. Let me start by expressing my sincere gratitude to the President of the Republic, President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma, for deploying me to come and represent him today on this special occasion. As you are aware, the President is leading mourners who have gone to bid farewell to our beloved Minister of Public Service, now departed, Collins Chabani. May his soul rest in peace indeed. Let me also indicate that the Deputy President, as you may well be aware, is also unable to represent the President here today because of the special occasion he could not avoid to attend in Namibia, which is the inauguration of the new President of Namibia. Let me also state that it is both a sad, a somber occasion on the one hand in South Africa because of us being in mourning, but it is also a day of celebration. We celebrate because today we recall the road that we have traversed to be where we are, to have achieved the kind of democracy, the kind of freedoms, the kind of human rights-based society that we have become, thanks to the contribution made by so many heroes and heroines who have fallen but not forgotten. They have not been forgotten because we are here today to remember them. May I take this opportunity especially to welcome all the survivors of the Uitenhage massacre and survivors of all other massacres and the families of victims who are our guests today. The month of March is a very significant month in the history of our calendar. For it was during this month of March that 56 unarmed people were mowed down by the apartheid system in Sharpeville during the anti-pass protests in 1960. On March 21, 1960, events were planned in many parts of the country for people to protest against the past laws. In Sharpeville, thousands of people gathered at the police station demanding to be arrested. They were instead met by 300 police and arrested. They were met instead by 300 police officers who, after a scuffle, opened fire on them, killing 69 people. 180 more were injured on the same occasion. It was also on this day in 1985 that 12 people were gunned down by the apartheid police a road from here while on a march to in a march to KwaNobuhle to commemorate Sharpeville Day. A lot more were shot but survived the massacre. That is the reason why today we are gathered at this sports field, which is close to the venue of the 1985 massacre. The democratic government led by the ANC took the decision to make the 21st of March a public holiday during which we reaffirm the human rights of all the people of South Africa. On this day, we remember the sacrifices of the many people of Sharpeville, the people of Uitenhage, the people of Duncan Village, and all the people who sacrificed their lives so that we enjoy the fruit of free and democratic South Africa. We have heard from a survivor of the massacre how a group of unarmed people on their way to a commemoration were suddenly shot and killed by the police here at Langa 30 years ago. This year, government is asking all of us to use the Human Rights Month as a vehicle to foster social cohesion, nation building, national identity, socio-economic development, and an end to xenophobia and homophobia. People within communities should care for one another. We should go back to the tradition of caring for each other so that we can ensure that children and young people get to learn what Ubuntu means in South Africa. We should go back to tradition of sharing for each other's with each other, including the aged in particular, who are often forgotten in society. In terms of xenophobia, we need to root out from our communities the new habit of looting and destroying shops owned by immigrants because simply of their identity. These shops render services to the very communities that end up looting and destroying them. Ladies and gentlemen, in instances where we have complaints about activities that are illegal from immigrant communities, I encourage that this be reported to your councillors or the police. Please do not loot and destroy any property to vent out your grievances. The month of March incorporates the International Women's Rights Day, held on 8 March every year. On that day, we focus on the plight of women all over the world and recommit ourselves to making South Africa a better place for our women. Apart from hosting stadium events on Human Rights Day, what have we done to restore and protect the human rights of the majority of South Africans? Our theme for this event says, celebrating the Freedom Charter, enjoying equal human rights for all. Our Constitution preamble contains the Bill of Rights, taken from the Freedom Charter almost word for word. The human rights in our Constitution are the basis of all our legislation and are the ideal towards which we are striving as a government and as a country to achieve. The South African Constitution has articulated a number of these rights as stated in Chapter 2, which is also our Bill of Rights. These rights include the right to equality, which means you cannot be discriminated against, but affirmative action and fair discrimination are allowed. Everyone is equal before the law and may not be discriminated against in any way. Human dignity. Your dignity must be respected and protected. Everyone has a basic human dignity which must be respected. Life. You have the right to life. Everyone has the right to live. Freedom and security of the person. You cannot be detained without trial, tortured, or punished in an inhumane manner. Domestic violence is not allowed. You may not be physically detained without trial or abused in any way. Slavery, servitude, and forced labor. Slavery, forced labor are not allowed. You may not and may never be subjected to slavery of any kind or forced labor in South Africa. Privacy. You cannot be searched or have your home or possession searched without justification. Your right to privacy includes your body, home, and possessions. Freedom of religion, belief, and opinion. And let me at this moment pause and compliment the members of the different faiths who have led us into today's event as evidence of how we as South Africa do not only respect freedom of religion, but actually celebrate it. Thank you for your contribution this morning. Now, under this right, you can believe and think whatever you want and can follow the religion of your choice. You have the right to think, believe, and worship whomever you may choose. Freedom of expression. All people, including the press, can say whatever they want within the ambit of the law, of course. You have the right to say, read, and study whatever you choose, but hate speech is not allowed. Assembly, demonstration, picket, and petition. You can hold a demonstration, picket, and present a petition, but you must do this peacefully and without the use of violence. You have the right to peacefully assemble, demonstrate, and protest. Freedom of association. You can associate with whomever you want. You have the right to associate with anyone, and nobody can limit you in exercising that right. Political rights. You can support the political party of your choice. If you are a citizen and at least 18 years old, you can vote for a political party of your choice. You may form a political party yourself, run for office, and vote for any party in free and fair elections in South Africa. Citizenship. Your citizenship cannot be taken away from you. No citizen may be deprived of his or her citizenship. Freedom of movement and residence. You can go and live anywhere in the Republic of South Africa. You have the right to enter and leave the Republic at your own free will. Freedom of trade, occupation, and profession. You can do whatever work you choose. You have the right to choose any legal trade or occupation freely. That is excluding, of course, illegal trades. You know those ones. Labor relations. You may join trade unions and go on strike. Every worker and employer has the right to organize and negotiate to further their labor rights in the workplace. Environment. You have the right to a healthy environment. You have the right to live in a protected, healthy environment. Property. Your property can only be taken away from you if the proper rules are followed. No one may be deprived of property except in terms of law of general application. Housing. The government must make sure that people get proper access to housing. You have the right to access adequate housing, healthcare, food, water, and social security. The government must make sure you have access to food and water, healthcare, and social security. You have the right to healthcare, adequate food and water, as well as social security. Children under the age of 18 have special rights, like the right not to be abused. Every child has the right to a name, nationality, and protection from abuse and exploitation. Education. You have the right to basic education, including adult basic education in your own language, if this is possible. You have the right to a basic education in the official language of your choice. Language and culture. You can use the language you want to and follow the culture that you choose. You have the right to use the language of your choice and practice your own culture. Cultural, religious, and linguistic communities. Communities can enjoy their own culture, practice their own religion, and use their own language. You have the right to form, join, and maintain cultural, linguistic, and religious groups of your own choice. Access to information. You have the right to any information which the government has. You may access any information held by the state for the protection of your rights. Just administrative action. Actions by the government must be fair. You have the right to administrative action that is lawful, reasonable, and fair. Access to courts. You have a legal, if you have a legal problem, you have the right to have a legal problem decided by a court or a similar structure. You have the right to resolve legal disputes in a court or another impartial tribunal. Arrested, detained, and accused persons. This right protects people who are arrested, imprisoned, or accused. When arrested, you have the right to remain silent, to be brought before a court within 48 hours following your arrest, and the right to legal representation, including legal representation provided at state cost if you are unable to afford such legal representation. Let me briefly touch on the right to land. Many communities have had their land removed from them. Many communities have had their land restored to them. A further more communities have opted for financial compensation. As we speak, government is restoring the human rights of the people of District 6 in Cape Town by returning the land to its rightful owners. Government has reopened the land claims window to allow communities who feel left out to submit their claims for land restitution. We all know that land rights are human rights. Lastly, our government has restored the the dignity and human rights of our leaders, such as Moses Kotane and John Beaver Marks, whose mortal remains were repatriated from Russia. Some of us will, upon leaving here today, be proceeding to Gauteng to actually participate in the commemorations that are taking place tomorrow in Ventersdorp Northwest, where we will be participating in the reburial of J.B. Marks. Moses Kotane was reburied at his home in Pela on the 14th of this month, and J.B. Marks is going to be reburied on the 22nd at his home in Ventersdorp, as I've just mentioned. These two leaders were liberation fighters and leaders of both the Communist Party and the African National Congress. They both died in exile in Moscow and were buried there. By restoring the dignity of their mortal remains, we are affirming the human rights of our children and our grandchildren. We need to use today to reaffirm our commitment to the protection of each other's human rights. May every day be a Human Rights Day. I thank you.
Make siphakame siqhwabeleni isithethi sembeko. Siyabulela kuwe tata uMasuta omele upresident esimaziyo into yoba namhlanje
human rights celebrations, commemorations, and he was just talking about the human rights, where we've come from and how much we've achieved. And Iviwe Porti joins me now. Iviwe, he was talking about the challenges of social ills and how it perpetually violates human rights. And from talking to many people here, I'm sure you come across people say we haven't reached that promised land yet, but steps are being made, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I think housing also is one of the main issues that people did speak about, that they're still waiting for houses. And he spoke about us having our rights, but also respecting time and respecting the rights of others as well, speaking about the social issues within communities as well, such as the attacks on your foreign nationals that have shops within. So it's not just about us, but it's also about respecting others as well when it comes to human rights.
Iviwe, thank you very much indeed for your time. I hope, folks, you've learned as much as we have during this broadcast. Thank you very much indeed for watching. For myself, Blaine Herman, and Iviwe Porti, have yourself a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, we have now reached the end of the day's events, of course, out there in Uitenhage, where the official event to commemorate Human Rights Day was held today. Thank you to our roving reporters from the different parts of the country where this day was being commemorated. I'd also like to thank my studio guest, Tiseke Kasambala, the Deputy Director for the Open Society Initiative for Southern Africa, as well as Celimpilo Shange Butane, the Executive Director of Amnesty International, who joined us earlier today for a very insightful discussion. This is an SABC News production. I'm Alicia Jali. From all of us here in Johannesburg, happy Human Rights Day. Goodbye.
hezwi vhathu vha tshi ḓa kha nṋe vha tshi ri ndi ṱalutshedze uri ndoro dzavho dzi khomba mini mbo ḓi vha vhudzisa mbudziso nthihi fhedzi
ndi ifhio yeneyo
ya uri vha khou ṱoḓa uri ndi ṱalutshedze uri ndoro dzavho dzi khou ṱoḓa amba uri mini
ndi zwenezwo
kana vha ya ḓivha uri ndoro dzavho dzi khou amba uri mini fhedzi vha khou vhonela phindulo i ḓo vha yo khou amba naho na ndoro dzavho
ndi amba ngeyo nṋe ndi ngazwo ndi fhano nga vhe ndo vha ndi tshi khou ḓivha uri nṋe miloro ine nda khou lora yone i khou amba mini nda ḓa ndi songo ḓa fhano zwino ndi ngazwo ndo ḓa mulimisi ndi khou ṱoḓa u thusiwa
ndo no ḓivha vhudza vhakuma uri vhone vha khou fanela u ita mini vha khou fanela u thusa wo ithivheli mbilo a kone u farelwa lufhanga ngei pfamoni
vhathu vasho nezwi zwithu ngoho zwa vhukuma a ti zwi pfhi nda mu thusa nga murahu musi ho bvelela aḽa mafhungo na mulimisi na zwi khou tou zwi humbulisa nezwi zwithu
ndi a zwi ḓivha vhakuma fhedzi arali ho ithivheli mbilo a sa thusiwa vhutshilo ha hoyu muvhango u ḓo vha khakhathini kuri matshilo avho a vhathu a tshi u ṱumana vhakuma
Wanomswapha
lady msebenzini kashoko la ke na le presentation o santse ke itukisetse yona kopana go tsela msebetsi wa ka my love ka kgona ke tsate
I'll make it. Do you want sugar?
ke la mabana tse le teng kopana ke se tswana go tsate ya ka ne
Give him time.
Uvumeleni yena ukuthi kwenziwe umsebenzi uma ngabe lento ngeke imenze ukuthi akhohle.
Uvume ngoba bengasalahla ithemba. Nanokuthi wena baba umphoqile. Izinto seshintshile baba.
Akushintshanga lutho. Lona umkhondo nje. Umkhondo ozogcina umenze ukuthi adumale. Umkhondo ofana neminye nje imikhondo esike saba nayo.
Wena baba kanti indaba ungahambi naye.
Cha angila.
Baba, ngiyacela ngicela ukuthi uyicabangisise lento. Uyamazi udadweni ukuthi akathanda ukuphoxeka. Futhi uzokudinga. Asambe. Kesadla nje. Asambe. Fonela man.
Click out for Manager James. Hey, he's been avoiding my calls for the whole weekend.
How? You didn't come in?
No. I could say.
It's either Nkabeni or Nkabenanga. Like Kwanzagalan.
What the hell? We'll find out sooner or later. Kibusi. She's gotten herself into a very, very sticky situation.
What situation?
Anti-16.
What?
Anti-16, yeah. I mean, apparently she doesn't even know where she was being filmed.
James has lento.
I've never seen him so distraught. I mean, he never said anything to me after. Come on, son. You're on the videotape.
You're proud, Ganga. But close, Ganga. This is going to kill him.
Lindy has a check account from a well-known bank, which is nice. Taryn, on the other hand, has an ABSA Gold Value Bundle account, which includes unlimited point-of-sale purchases, 6 take-me-home services every year, 15,000 Rand lump sum death benefit, and so much more, all for only 98 Rand per month. And she gets real cash rewards. Perhaps it's time you got a little pampered. Ooh, that looks delicious. Choose the Gold Value Bundle account, available online. Get more and prosper.
Oh, but wait, there's this girl, Shireen. She gives it all of this and all of that. She really likes it. Hello, what are you doing? Internet dating. You don't even know this guy. You could be talking to some weird psycho freak for all we know. Yaziniko, let's have some of this fabulous wine.
Now that's our kind of saint.
Today we're learning about new Mr. Muscle Easy Gel Cleaner with microbeads. It kills 99.9% of germs, but also gives you a better clean on soap, scum, and stains than the leading thick bleach. Any questions?
Can I test this one at home?
Add more muscle to your cleaning routine with new Mr. Muscle Easy Gel Cleaner.
Today on the Buy Smart list, Jungle Energy Bars. We all have goals in life, but it's not easy when people keep moving the goalposts. When you need that extra energy to meet your goals, reach for South Africa's favourite energy bar. Jungle Energy Bars are packed with the goodness of pure jungle oats for sustained energy. Dipped in delicious chocolate, it's the great-tasting pocket-sized snack that gives you the energy to achieve your goals and be a champion. So buy smart, buy Jungle Energy Bars. If they're on our list, make sure they're on yours.
I-Herbex seyincede amawaka abantu ukuhla esikalini.
Ngosebenzisa ihlahla lamafutha ndehla ngo-46 kgs.
Ndisebenzise u-Herbex ndehla nge-18 kilograms.
Bendingawuthanda umzimba wakho. Ndifuna uba sisileyo njengeetshomi zam.
Bendingazithembanga, bendisoloko ndineentloni. Ndikhethe i-Herbex kuba ingungqa phambili ekuhlaseleni amafutha emzantsi ngamatisipuni abe mathathu kabini ngemini. Ukuba ufuna ukwehla, thenga i-Herbex. Ihlasela amafutha for everyone.
Are mosquitoes driving you crazy? Raid Liquid Electric, now proven to kill even hidden mosquitoes.
Raid!
Turn on Raid Liquid Electric and turn your lamp off for good. Raid Liquid Electric, SC Johnson, a family company.
This is our story.
It started with a dream, a burning desire.
To do something bigger than just to make our daily bread.
We wanted to make a real difference. It's the story of investing our customers' funds in projects that deliver good returns while ensuring a sustainable future for this country.
So we planned for tomorrow and built these solar fields.
And wind farms with huge turbines.
And tonight,
653,000 more homes
will have warmth and light. It's about communities and how these projects build more than hope.
To better the lives of more than 500,000 school children, because our future depends on having more doctors, engineers, teachers, and entrepreneurs.
We are not just watching the world change. We are changing the world.
That's why I save with,
invest with,
partner with,
work at Old Mutual.
Clientele Legal specializes in South African law. Whether it's an unfair dismissal, a wrongful arrest, blacklisting, poor service, or faulty goods, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you 24 hours a day.
It's affordable. Cover starts from 120 Rand per month.
SMS rights to 48712 and Clientele Legal will call you back.
We had a cry at work and I wasn't even aware that I had too much to drink. So I ended up in jail, and then I phoned the call center. They assisted me. That's the day whereby I realized that my money didn't go to waste.
I was unfairly dismissed. I then called Clientele Legal. I took my matter to a CCMA.
Let's be clear. We won't accept anything less than 60,000 Rand.
We'll settle.
And I actually was compensated 60,000 Rand.
Legal hassles? Call your lawyer. We are standing by to assist. You don't have to take time off work, waste petrol money, or sit around waiting in lawyers' offices. Simply call or email your lawyer. For the first 3 months, we'll be happy to give you telephonic advice. Thereafter, if necessary, an attorney will be appointed to you at a place that is convenient for you.
I was blacklisted.
I had 2 judgments. Luckily, I had a clientele legal policy with me. My judgments and defaults were removed in my name. I'm going to buy myself a car. I'm going to buy myself a new home.
In this country, you actually never know when you're actually going to need legal representation.
For convenient, affordable, and superior legal services, join Clientele Legal today. Professional lawyers, professional advice at an affordable price.
SMS rights to 48712 and Clientele Legal will call you back. SMS now.
O ka se phele ipatetse nna ho ya ho ile satane to. Ke tlo fumana mo go fumanang teng ke a o bolella ke a o hlapanyetsa ba taung ba ntswetse o tlo itshola re ngwana ka no mo kene kae. I promise you can bet your professorship on that Satan. Bonang ha o motho, you are a scumbag. But what's on wena ke di predator tse busy di mathakarabana di mathakamrabana ba banyane. Ke tlo fumana Satan o tlo ke reng o tsantse ba ndore ke mang. I have to go to work.
Go ba bua le wena. Ke tseba o kwatile.
Ke kwatile. Ho kwata Nthabeleng does not even begin to describe what I'm going through or how I'm feeling. Ke fetoile se thotho ke tsa thotho ka tla sa rufu ya ntlo ya ka Nthabeleng. Busi wa eng? Bona tsa tseba ntlo re wetsang eng?
She is as much a victim to that pervert as you are.
Busi o ne a sebetsa le yona perfect e o buang ka Nthabeleng.
That's not fair.
Fair? You tell me. Se buisa sentseng hona se fair Nthabeleng.
Hey, ona le phoso. Oh Maswabi, James, she's going through hell because of this.
And I guess I'm supposed to feel sorry for her.
No, as a father, you're supposed to talk to her, not make her feel worse.
And what you need to do, Nthabeleng, is stay the hell out of this. This is between me and my child. Who's this one now, Nthabeleng? And believe me, you cannot begin.
Danda mianga. Ndova ndikhovilela nga maanḓa musi ndi songo vha vhona ngezwiḽiwani zwa nga matsheloni.
Mulandu?
Hawu, ndi khou ri ṱhamusi mazhinda ngao vha netisa lwe vhone vha muḓumbulo uri hai ndi khwine ṱoḓa umela ndi ye Thohoyandou zwa thathi ndi nga si zwi kone.
Hai, a huna na tshikakhathi. Nṋe ndo to vhuya hafha ndo ḓiimisela tshoṱhe.
Zwi a takadza u pfha hezwo mianga nahone u vha hone yavho fhano tsini zwi ḓo ri thusa vhukuma.
Zwo to thusa nṋe ngauri zwino ndi vho pfha nga ngomu mbiluni yanga hu na muṅwe mulalo une hoyu mulalo u khou itiswa nga zwezwo.